Paid ads in 2025 are a completely different animal. They have the power to make you a lot of money and the power to lose you a lot of money if you're not careful. And after running multiple profitable campaigns for AI and B2B tech firms, I've seen exactly what separates the campaigns that print cash with paid ads from the ones that burn their budget. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through the patterns that I've personally seen, what actually makes paid ads work in 2025, the platforms you should be leveraging if you want the best bang for your buck. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive right into things. All right. So before we talk any strategy and get into the minutia and the details, let's talk about more of the overall landscape that we're in when it comes to running ads and what you have to prepare yourself for. So now more than ever, competition is up, and it's going to only increase as the years go on and on. Marketing costs are only going to go up. It's only going to be more harder for you to market on these platforms because there's going to be more people marketing on them. The thing that we're seeing right now in 2025 as well is that trust is at an all-time low, right? It's because of the fact that a lot of these buyers that you're trying to target are being inundated with so many different types of messages from all of your competitors. And so what we're also seeing is that sales cycles are taking a lot longer than they normally have, right? It's taking a lot more information that's needed to be given to prospects before they buy because of the fact that they're choosing from so many different options now. And so you have to understand that before you choose your platform, that this is the landscape that you have going on right now, that costs are super high, right? Higher than they ever been, and it's only going to go up. And trust is at an all-time low, meaning that you have to make sure that if you're using certain platforms, you can't make any mistakes or you're going to burn a lot of money. And so let's talk about these different platforms that you're most likely running ads on. These are the three most popular platforms. LinkedIn ads. Now, LinkedIn ads are great in terms of quality. You can actually target B2B enterprise buyers very easily. They have very high intent when you do get leads through LinkedIn. However, the caveat here and big caveat is it's very expensive. And I just put a range here in terms of cost per call, anywhere from $800 to $1,500. Sometimes you can be paying even more depending on the exact type of company and exact type of decision maker that you're going after. So you can imagine when you are paying this much for these calls, you need to have your offer and your sales process dialed in to make sure that you have a good ROAS. So LinkedIn wouldn't be a first place that I would start running ads. It would only be there if you have a big budget and you have a lot of money to spend and you've got your sales process and your offer just super dialed. There's also Google ads, right? That are probably more popular than any type of other ad platform for, this tech firm and AI space. A lot of people are running Google ads. It's the same thing though, that cost per clicks are super high on Google, and you have to make sure that you have a really good process in place because Google ads will cost you a lot of money. And I've seen a lot of companies burn a lot of money on Google ads. And to be very frank with you, I've probably talked to about 1,000 to 2,000 different tech and AI firms, and I don't think I've ever met one of them that have profitably ran LinkedIn or Google ads. Now, I could have been just talking to all the percentages that haven't, but that goes to show that LinkedIn and Google are very hard platforms to crack, and you have to make sure that you have a big budget and you can compete with a lot of these enterprise companies that are running these ads that can just outbid you. And so if it's not LinkedIn or Google that you should run ads on, then what should it be? And that is Meta ads. And that is the winning platform that I recommend every single AI and tech firm that's going B2B to start marketing on. And I know this sounds counterintuitive. You're probably like, my enterprise customers are not scrolling Facebook and Instagram. Now, that couldn't actually be farther from the truth. Facebook has the most data on all of us. And it's kind of scary a little bit, but they have about 1.2 billion people that actively scroll Instagram and Facebook. And secondly, they have the most data points on each person. And so they can very easily find ways to target your demographic when you are going out with an ad. The Meta Pixel has become really good at targeting. And so what you'll see on Meta ads as well is a lot lower cost per qualified book calls. Not to give you some quick examples from just my own experience from our clients campaigns are doing $80 to $300 cost per qualified book calls. And we're seeing that consistently across the board. And so that goes to show that you can make mistakes in other parts of your process and still be wildly profitable. You can have a 10% close rate and still be wildly profitable. And that is why I always recommend Meta ads to start with, because you can actually have more conversations with folks. You can develop out your offering more. You can see exactly if your offering is resonating with the market, and you can really figure out what your ICP needs to be and the angle in terms that you need to take in order to make sure that they're actually buying from you. And so for me personally, and for the clients that I work with, I always recommend starting with Meta. Now, how do you run profitable ads on Meta? That's the next section that we're going to talk about. We're going to get into a little bit more of the specifics here and exactly what you need to be doing. So the first things first, and you've probably heard me say this before if you watch some other videos of mine, is you need to have a clear ICP and a clear offer. Offer is like the foundation. Think of this as the foundation for everything that you do, because if you don't have a good foundation, right? No matter what you build on top of it, it's going to crumble. And so you have to make sure that you're very specific with your call outs, you're very specific with the outcomes that you promise in your ads. And that is because Facebook is a disruption based advertising platform, meaning that, when you're scrolling on Facebook, that's when you get hit with the ad. You're not searching for the ads, your ad has to stand out. And so you have to make sure that there's no generic offers, right? You're not just saying something super generic that doesn't resonate with folks, because what we've seen work the best on Meta is we've built the world's first X, Y, and Z platform that can help you automate this specific problem that you're having, right? And it's super new, it's novel, it's exciting, and it's relevant to that specific industry. So before you think about creating ads, think about what is my ICP and what is that clear offer going to look like for the specific ICP. Second thing is going to be creatives and frameworks. So we want to make sure that we're testing different creatives. Now, we always recommend testing both static and video ads. And it's actually kind of crazy for us. We don't really hear this across the board. We found that statics actually outperform video ads about 70 to 30%. However, you should test both and see exactly what's going to resonate better for your brand and for your offer. Now, this is a big caveat that I will say to this as well. And when you're running ads, it's never one-to-one, right? So for example, if you were to look in the ads library and copy and paste somebody else's ads and try to run that for your company, it may not work. And that's because of the fact that brands are in play. There's a lot of different factors that go into, exactly who your ad's being shown to and what people think about your brand. And so that is one thing to take in mind as well, is that everything that we talk about here, it's going to apply in terms of frameworks, but you can't copy and paste an ad and expect it to work for your company. Second thing that I'll mention here is that you want to make sure that you have a lot of creatives, right? So it's important to be testing multiple different creatives, different types of concepts that can actually prove out whether or not the offer is working or whether it's just a creative problem. Because sometimes you can have a really good offer, you just have a really bad creative that's in there. And so you're not able to actually tell whether or not that offer is resonating. So that's why I say it's important to test both the statics and the video ads before you rule out, hey, this offer isn't working. We have to change the messaging around this. We have to change the way that the angle that we're presenting this in. And so once you've actually figured out the creative and the offers that are resonating with your market, at that point, you just pump in new creatives every single week. And you want to make sure that you're monitoring your creative output week over week. So for example, you want to make sure that your cost per calls aren't dipping too much week over week. And as soon as they start dipping, that's when you want to start turning off some of your previous creatives and refreshing them with the same type of message, but just a different style of creative. So for example, if you know that this offer statement is working, you want to use the same offer statement, but you want to attach it to a different static ad. Or if you're running video ads, you want to use the same script that you're using and you just want to run it with like a different UGC actor, or you want to run it in a different background, right? So you're changing something about the ad that makes it different and you're just refreshing it because it's already working and it's proven. And so the last thing that you'll do after you've figured out your creative testing and you've been able to make sure that you've dialed that in with your offer and your creatives is you're going to want to make sure that you put in a proper conversion and sales system. And so as soon as someone clicks on your ad, you want to take them to a landing page and you want to have two different ones that you test. Now, I recommend that you test this and you see what exactly works for your offer. The biggest thing is you want to test just a landing page with just an opt-in, meaning that you have a landing page on there and there's an opt-in that shows them to put their name, their phone number, and their email address in. And you want to split test that across a video sales letter that has an opt-in. And typically what you'll see is in some cases, you'll see a lower cost per lead on the straight opt-in without a VSL. And you'll see a higher cost per lead on the VSL, but the quality of the leads that come through the VSL are typically higher. And so you have to make sure that you kind of weigh this trade-off before the two. Now, if you're starting out, I would say ditch the VSL to begin with. If you're spending less than $5,000 on a month, it doesn't make sense to run a VSL because you're not really having enough volume to even test that VSL. So I would say just stick with an opt-in, super clean funnel page, and just make it very simple for people to put in their information and to get more details. And then after they've gone through the opt-in, I recommend having an application form so you can filter out, a lot of people that are coming through your funnel. So you're asking very simple qualifying questions such as, are you this job title? Are you experiencing this pain point? You can even go as far as asking them, when are you looking to get this solved ASAP, now, whatever it may be. And you want to make sure that you have this application form in, because if not, you can have a lot of people that just book on your calendar that are just the wrong people to be talking to. So if you don't have a proper qualification system and application system in, you're going to be talking to the wrong folks. And this is actually where a lot of people get lost in, is because they'll be following up with all these leads that aren't actually relevant to the problem that they solve, or basically leads that can never even afford their services in the first place. And so as soon as someone actually opts in, this is when I really, really recommend that you have either yourself or a salesperson following up with those leads. And the whole purpose of an opt-in is to actually follow up with those leads. Now, you can actually ditch the opt-in altogether and you can go straight to a book call. However, when you're first starting, you want to have more conversations. You want to be talking with more folks. You want to be able to make sure that your offering is positioned the right way. And you only do that through pure volume and talking with more folks. Now, you can always put more friction on the funnel after you've dialed in your process and you want to just be talking with less people. However, in the beginning, it's very pivotal for you to be understanding what the market's talking about, what the actual pain points are, because a lot of times you'll get more insights from those conversations than you will just running ads. Like, those conversations with folks will help you shape your offering and help you figure out exactly the right positioning. And so what you want to be doing is when people come in through your funnel and opt in, is that you want to make sure that you're on top of those leads, you're calling them. Now, I'll drop this study because it's actually probably one of the most profound studies that I think came out from MIT, where they talked about if you call a lead within 5 minutes of them opting in, you have 100 times more likelihood of closing that lead, because leads typically go with whoever it is that responds first. And so if you are calling them right away, you're going to be able to book them in, show them your product, show them your offering, and have a higher chance of closing them. Remember, when people are clicking on your ads and opting in, they are also opting in on your competitor's ad. So it is important and very pivotal that you are having a lot of touch points in the beginning, getting these people on the phone and talking with them and being able to help them solve their problem. So that is a very important part of the back end. And this is more just obviously high level. We're not going into the weeds, and I can always make a video, more about this conversion and the sales system and show you some examples if you guys are interested in this. But those are really the three important parts of running profitable paid ads, is that you got to have that clear ICP, the clear offer, the creative volume testing framework, and then obviously the back end, right? The conversions, the landing page or the VSL, and then the application system, and then also following up with those leads. Now, before I let you guys go here, I want to talk about what is the biggest mistakes I see tech firms make and how you can avoid them. Like, these are the 5 most common mistakes that I see from people that are running ads that come to us and say like, hey, we're not profitable. Can you help us? And I typically have one of these 5 problems. First of all, they have no clear ICP or offer. It's super broad, super generic. Like I told you in the earlier section, you have to make sure that your ad stands out. You are disrupting someone's scroll. So if it doesn't stand out and your creatives don't stand out, you aren't going to break through the noise. A second thing is that I see a lot of people, they run like 1 or 2 ads and they're like, yeah, our ads don't work for us. I'm like, dude, you got to run at least 5 to 15 to 20 different ads for an angle, just one angle that you're testing, right? So that's why it's important to be testing different creatives, especially with the new update that Facebook came out with. They're prioritizing, campaigns with more creative output. And so it's important to be testing multiple different creatives. The third thing is that you're not spending enough, right? In order to run Facebook ads, and you want to make sure that you're spending at least $100 a day. If you're spending less than that, you typically don't have enough volume and you're not getting enough people through your funnel to know whether or not it's working. You're not training the pixel enough. And so you want to make sure that you can spend at least $100 a day before you even think about running Facebook ads. If you're trying to spend $20 or $30 a day for your B2B tech and AI space, it's not going to make sense for you because you're paying $300 for a cost per call. So for example, if you're running only like $50 a day and you're spending $1,500 a month, you're only really getting like 4 or 5 calls on ads. And it's just, you move at this alarmingly slow rate that you can't actually improve on your process. So I don't recommend you spending less than that. You could, but not my recommendation. The fourth thing is no brand presence or content. So this is an important one and often overlooked by a lot of founders, is that they don't have anything on their socials, right? They don't have no Facebook page. They don't have an Instagram page that has content on there. You have to think about it. When someone is clicking on your ad, they're going to click on your Facebook page. They're going to click on your Instagram page. If you don't have any content on there, you look like a ghost. They're going to be more reluctant to want to book a call with you because of that skepticism that's ultimately within the market now. So you want to make sure that you're posting content on every single different platform, and so that you make sure that there's more presence there and that they can trust you so that you get a lower cost per call. And the fifth thing that I see often hold back a lot of tech firms from making paid ads work is that they're scaling too slow. Like if you're spending $100 a day and you've closed like 2 or 3 deals and you have a crazy CAC to LTV, which we'll talk about here in a second, why aren't you spending more? Why aren't you scaling more? Like, well, what's holding you back, right? Sometimes people feel the need to, kind of go slow with things when things start to work. However, I feel like it's the actual opposite. Once things start to work and things start to dial in and you have a good ratio, there should be no reason as to why you're not cranking up your ad spend by, 3,000, 6,000, 9,000 a month as you continue to make more and more money on the back end. Because at that point, you're playing with house money, right? You're playing with money that you've already made. And so you can just reinvest the money that you've made back into the ads. And so those are the 5 most common mistakes that I see tech firms make. So make sure that you're not making any of these if you want to run ads profitably. Now, the last thing that we'll talk about before I kind of let you guys go here is the CAC to LTV profit model. So this is something that's talked about a lot when you are running ads. And this applies across just any different acquisition channel, but it's easily broken down with paid ads. And the reason is that you're typically tracking your cost per call based upon the ad spend that goes out. And you should be tracking this across every single different channel. However, with paid ads, once you figured out your customer acquisition cost and you figured out your LTV, for example, if you close a client and you make, $30,000 over the client, you make $30,000 profit from that client over the lifetime, and you spend $2,000 to acquire that client and you have a 15x ROAS, at that point, you should tell yourself like, hold on, I have a revenue ATM, right? I've now cracked this code essentially where you've have this arbitrage where if you put in $2,000, you know that you can get $30,000 as an output. And so at that point, really the only thing stopping you from scaling is just hiring more people in terms of salespeople and just ramping up the ad spend. Because once you found that winning model, all you have to do on the ad side is you just have to pump out more creatives. Because like I mentioned earlier, is that you don't want creatives to fatigue. So all you have to do is just pump out 10 to 15 new creatives every single week, right? Of the same exact messaging that you're already using. And then you have to hire more salespeople. And then boom, you just turn up the ad spend nozzle. It's never going to be one-to-one. Sure, maybe your CAC to LTV goes down, but once you understand your numbers, you will be able to scale very aggressively. And the biggest thing that you want to make sure that you're also, talking about and making sure that you're paying attention to is your payback periods. So for example, it's super important for you to make sure that you don't have long sales cycles when you're running ads. And that's because if you have long sales cycles, it's going to take longer and longer for you to pay yourself back, right? Because you're spending every single month and you're not making that money back that month specifically. So typically you don't want your payback period to be any longer than 90 days. Ideally, you want that to be in less than 30 days because that means that you can put money down on a credit card, make that money back, and you can pay off the credit card and keep money more in your pocket. So it's super important that you have your sales process dialed in as well. And you can actually, reduce your sales cycle and get cash up front. So that's super important where if you're, for example, even if you're running enterprise deals, I talk with a lot of clients who are like, oh, my sales cycles are 6 to 12 months. I get it, right? Like, especially if there's a lot of different decision makers there. However, what you should try to challenge yourself to do, and a lot of times I challenge my clients to do, is saying, okay, well, if it is, 6 to 12 months, how can we cut that down by 50%? What other offer could we sell them? What other thing that could we come up with that's a land and expand that gets your foot into the door so you can get a faster payback period? And so you want to make sure that you're really prioritizing sales velocity and getting money back in the bank when you are running ads so that you can scale quicker and scale more aggressively and understanding your metrics. And so those are the main things that I want to talk about with you guys today. I hope you got some value out of the video and started to understand exactly how you should start thinking about running profitable paid ads in 2025. For me personally and for our clients, I always recommend Meta being that platform to be using just because you can make the most mistakes and you can learn what your offer should be and you can learn exactly how to present your sales message to them, make sure that you're closing at a good percentage before you start thinking about adding other platforms and other, like LinkedIn and Google. And that's the second thing that I'll mention is that framework that I talked about, right? Making sure that you have the ICP and offer, right? Making sure that you're talking to a specific demographic and that you're super relevant. You're testing enough creatives, right? You're throwing about 10 to 15 different creatives per test, and you have that conversion system on the back, and you're calling the leads. You're testing either VSL or no VSL, and you put the application form in place to make sure that you're not talking with janitors. And so those are the things that I will leave you guys with. If you do have any questions on this process and want some help building this out for your business, go ahead and click the link in the description and book a call with myself. I'll be happy to walk you through completely for free what our process looks like, how we help companies like yours build systems like this. Now, if you guys did get value from this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. I put some time into these videos, so I always appreciate seeing a little like, seeing a little comment. But anyways, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. It's been a pleasure, and take it easy, guys. Ciao.